Hello and welcome to Warblog. This is the episode of On Strategy in General, Perseverance. Very short one, so I'm hoping to get through it quite quickly. I'm not so sure about digging into the others. Some of them look pretty good. Okay, so Perseverance. The reader expects to hear of strategic theory, of lines and angles, and instead of these denizens of the scientific world, he finds himself encountering only creatures of everyday life. But the author cannot bring himself to be, in the slightest degree, more scientific than he considers his subject to warrant, strange as this attitude may appear. Well, I think this sort of sums up his Claudewitz's sort of approach to writing. Really, I mean, it is claimed to be fantastic, but it doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. Perhaps I'm just not looking at it in the context that maybe it should be looked in. The reader expects to hear a strategic theory of lines and angles, and instead of these denizens of the scientific world, so instead of hearing about lines and angles, he or you or we find themselves or himself encountering only creatures of everyday life. Well, so instead of finding lines and angles, we find creatures of everyday life. What's that? Sort of cats and dogs. Is that what we're supposed to think? I don't know. I was looking forward to this one. Maybe the next paragraph's better. But the author cannot bring himself, that's Claudewitz, to be in the slightest degree more scientific than he considers his subject to warrant. So he's not going to be any more about lines and angles than he has to if he can talk about cats and dogs, which is my implication. Strange as this attitude may appear. I think the strange thing is he doesn't seem to be making any sense at all. But that's nothing new in lots of things, really. In war, more than anywhere else, things do not turn out as we expect. Okay, nearby, they do not appear as they did from a distance. Okay, with that assurance, an architect watches the progress of his work and sees his plans gradually take shape! Exclamation mark. Okay. A doctor, though much more exposed to chance and to inexplicable results, knows his medicines and the effects they produce. By contrast, the general in time of war is constantly bombarded by reports of both true and false. But errors arising from fear or negligence or hastiness, by disobedience born of right or wrong interpretations, of ill will, of a proper or mistaken sense of duty, of laziness or of exhaustion, and by accidents that nobody could have foreseen. In short, he is exposed to countless impressions, most of them disturbing, few of them encouraging. Long experience of war creates a knack of rapidly assessing these phenomena. Courage and strength of character are as impervious to them as a rock to the rippling waves. If a man were to yield to these pressures, he would never complete an operation. Perseverance is the chosen course in the essential counterweight. Perseverance in the chosen course is the essential counterweight, provided that no compelling reasons intervene to the contrary. Moreover, there is hardly a worthwhile enterprise in war whose execution does not call for infinite effort, trouble, and privation, and as man under pressure tends to give in to physical and intellectual weakness, only great strength of will can lead to the objective. It is steadfastness that will earn the admiration of the world and of posterity. Well, I think basically what he's saying there is that a leader or general needs to follow through on whatever plan he had, it doesn't really seem to really even warrant any sort of reflection, really. You know, he's saying that once a general creates a plan, he'll be bombarded by reports, both true and false, by errors arising from fear of negligence or hastiness, by disobedience born of right or wrong interpretations, of ill will, of proper or mistaken sense of duty, of laziness or of exhaustion, and by accidents that nobody could have foreseen. In short, he is exposed to countless impressions, most of them disturbing, few of them encouraging. So, long experience of war creates a knack of rapidly assessing these phenomena. Courage and strength of character are as impervious to them as a rock to the rippling waves. If a man were to yield to these pressures, i.e. change his mind from whatever he is doing, he would never complete an operation. Perseverance in the chosen course is the essential counterweight, provided that no compelling reasons to the contrary. So it's sort of saying that once you've decided on something, to continue with it, unless there is actually a compelling reason to intervene to the contrary, as opposed to one of the other reports that will continually bombard the general leader, that would possibly make him consider intervening to the contrary. So it seems quite difficult, really, because, I mean, you know, how do you know whether something, a report or some information or a situation, requires intervening to the contrary, or reverting a course of action, or stopping, or essentially retreating, or something like that? How do you make that decision? I mean, it doesn't seem really to be anything more than a sort of very vague concept, and I would have thought the perseverance would be a lot more involved. I was looking forward to it, really. Moreover, there is hardly a worthwhile enterprise in war whose execution does not call for infinite effort, trouble and privation, and as man under pressure tends to give in to physical and intellectual weakness, only great strength of will can lead to the objective. I think the thing that possibly maybe overlooking is the physical and the intellectual concept of weakness. I mean, physical, maybe you could understand that, and then understanding that it's a physical weakness and overcoming it. But an intellectual weakness, well, that's a little harder to understand. But I think he's sort of, you know, trying to put these into some sort of context, and to the extent that only great strength of will can overcome those, or to lead to the objective. So great strength of will, and I think it's the interpretation of the physical and intellectual weaknesses that is sort of a bit vague. I think it's obvious, it's easy to sort of imagine that you understand what these things mean, but to understand a physical weakness is sort of maybe something else, and especially an intellectual weakness. You know, I mean, what would that encompass? You know, self-doubt, perhaps conflicting information. You know, the weight of that, of having made decisions that might be contrary to what other people think. I don't know, really. I don't really know what to make of that chapter. It's not very long, so there's nothing what to interpret. I'll leave it at that, because I don't want to just talk forever when it's not required. So that's the Coleridge's chapter on perseverance, which wasn't very long and was easy to get through. No perseverance required. Okay, I'll speak to you later.